Danny and Sarah first met in high school, but this wasn't some fairy tale romance. They didn't fall for each other because of looks or fleeting teenage lust. What brought them together was ambition. Pure, raw ambition. Danny was the quiet, calculating type who always had a plan. He stayed out of the spotlight, but behind the scenes, he knew how to move the pieces on the board. Sarah? Thought she was the opposite. Outgoing, charismatic, and unafraid to make bold moves. She knew how to manipulate people with a smile, how to get them to trust her, and then take advantage when they least expected it. Their partnership wasn't based on love. It was based on mutual need. Danny needed someone with connections, someone who could open doors for him. Sarah needed someone who could think 3 steps ahead, who could keep her out of trouble while she worked her magic on the surface. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. They started small, running minor hustles, flipping electronics, selling fake designer clothes online. But soon, they realized they could do so much more. And more is exactly what they went after. Fast forward to after high school, and they had grown into something much bigger. By now, they were running a complex operation. A web of online scams, crypto schemes, and black market deals that was making them serious money. Sarah handled the social side, bringing in clients and closing deals. Danny handled the technical side, keeping everything running smoothly, making sure the money flowed without raising red flags. At first, it worked like a charm. They were making more money than they ever thought possible, and they were doing it together. But with that money came something darker: greed. Sarah had always been the risk taker, the one who wanted more, no matter the cost. Danny? He was more cautious, always thinking about the long term. That difference started to eat away at them, and before long, cracks began to show. Sarah started keeping secrets. She'd meet with clients without telling Danny. She started to take risks he didn't agree with, cutting deals that didn't sit right. Danny noticed the changes, but he trusted her. They had been through too much for him to question her loyalty. At least, that's what he thought. But then one day, it all came crashing down. It was a normal morning when Danny logged into their accounts to check the balances. Except when he did, he found nothing. Every account, every wallet, every last cent they'd made together, gone. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe they had been hacked. But as he started to dig deeper, the horrible truth became clear. This wasn't a hack. This was Sarah. She had been planning it for months, slowly siphoning money into secret accounts, setting up deals behind his back, creating a way out for herself. And now, she was gone. She hadn't just taken the money. She had disappeared completely. No calls, no texts. It was like she had never existed. Danny was left broke and ruined. But worse than that, he was left holding the bag for everything. Their business wasn't exactly legal, and now with Sarah gone and the money wiped clean, the dangerous people they'd been working with were looking for someone to blame. And that someone was Danny. But Danny wasn't the kind of guy to just take it. Sarah had betrayed him, had left him for dead, but he wasn't going to let her get away with it. He wasn't just angry, he was focused. He started tracking her, and it didn't take long for him to piece together her trail. She thought she was smart, thought she had covered her tracks. But Danny knew her better than anyone. He knew how she thought, knew where she would go. He followed her from city to city, watching as she set up her new life, using the money she stole from him to fund her fresh start. Sarah wasn't hiding. She didn't think she needed to. She was living in luxury, using Danny's money to build a new empire, making new deals, getting involved with people even more dangerous than before. She was playing a dangerous game, but she was confident. She always had been. She thought she had left Danny behind, but Danny was patient. He wasn't going to make a move until the time was right. He didn't just want the money back. He wanted Sarah to pay. And not just with her life. No, that would be too easy. He wanted to destroy her the way she had destroyed him, piece by piece. So, he started to mess with her. Subtle at first, leaking information to her new business partners, sabotaging her deals, making sure things fell apart just as they were about to succeed. Sarah started to feel the pressure. She knew someone was coming for her, but she didn't know who. She thought it might be one of her new enemies, someone she had crossed in this new world she was trying to conquer. But then she started to see the pattern, started to realize that the person behind it all wasn't a stranger. It was Danny. That's when the final game began. Danny sent her a message. No words, just coordinates. It was an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where no one would hear you scream. Sarah showed up, thinking this was it, the final showdown. She wasn't scared, though. She thought she could outsmart him, thought she had one more trick up her sleeve. Danny had already planned everything. When she walked into the warehouse, she didn't see Danny right away. Instead, she saw a boy, no more than 12 years old, standing in the middle of the room, staring at her with cold, dead eyes. He was holding a length of rope in his hands. The sight of him unnerved her. There was something about the way he stood there, so still, so calm, that made her heart race. "Where's Danny?" she demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. The boy didn't respond. He just tightened his grip on the rope, his eyes never leaving hers. That's when Danny stepped out from the shadows, his face unreadable. "You remember him?" Danny's voice echoed in the empty warehouse. Sarah glanced at the boy again, her confusion deepening. "You destroyed his family," Danny continued, taking slow, deliberate steps toward her. "You took everything from them, just like you took everything from me." It hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She had scammed so many people over the years, left so many in ruins, that she didn't even remember this boy. But Danny had found him, taken him in, and now he was part of the plan. The boy was holding the noose, and Sarah was the one it was meant for. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" Danny's voice was calm, almost cold. "You thought you could just walk away, leave me with nothing, and start over." Sarah's mind raced as she tried to figure a way out. "Danny, we can fix this," she began, but he cut her off with a sharp look. "This isn't about fixing anything," Danny said, his tone dark and final. "This is about ending it." The boy moved then, stepping forward with the noose in hand. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she backed up, her eyes darting around the room for any way out. But there was none. Danny had made sure of that. The boy, with a chilling lack of emotion, slipped the noose over her head, pulling it tight. Sarah gasped, her hands flying to the rope as she struggled to free herself. But the boy was strong. He dragged her toward the center of the room, where an old beam hung overhead, and threw the rope over it. Sarah kicked and struggled, her breath coming in short, desperate gasps, but it was useless. The boy pulled the rope tight, lifting her off the ground. Her feet kicked wildly as she fought for air, but the noose tightened, cutting off her screams. Danny watched in silence as Sarah's body jerked and twisted, her eyes wide with terror. She was no longer the confident, untouchable woman she had once been. She was helpless, and Danny watched her die without a flicker of emotion. Sarah's body finally went limp, swaying slightly as the last of her life drained away. The boy let go of the rope, stepping back into the shadows without a word. Danny stared up at her lifeless form, hanging there in the darkness. He didn't feel satisfaction, didn't feel triumph. All he felt was the cold, empty silence of revenge. Without a word, Danny turned and walked out of the warehouse, leaving Sarah behind, hanging from the beam, her life reduced to nothing more than a swinging shadow in the dark.